Welcome to NewYorkTrue.com. Last night, the group Families for Excellent Schools hosted a mayoral forum attended by 4 Democratic candidates: Anthony Weiner, Christine Quinn, Sal Albanese, and John Liu. Families for Excellent Schools describes itself as a, quote, community organization that fights for every child's right to an excellent education, close quote. Based on what I saw and heard at the forum, many, but not all of its parent members are charter school parents. In these excerpts, each candidate is asked the same 2 questions. Should charter schools be able to co-locate in public school space? And should charter schools co-located in city school buildings pay rent to the city? These 2 issues are the current flashpoints in the long-running tensions over charter schools. Among the means that the Bloomberg administration has used to energetically encourage the growth of charter schools is the placement of charter schools into Department of Education school buildings, which also house traditional public schools. Most charters would not be financially viable without the public school building space provided by the city. Accordingly, opponents of charter schools have vigorously opposed co-locations and, as a fallback, sought to require that charter schools pay rent for such space. Among the most politically powerful charter school opponents is the New York City Teachers Union, the UFT. The UFT is one of the most coveted union endorsements for Democratic candidates, and most of the Democratic candidates are strongly seeking its support. Here's what the candidates had to say.
Should charters be able to co-locate in public school space? We are looking for a yes or no answer here.
Yeah, I don't roll with yes or no answers. Here's what I tell you. And I said this a little bit in the last question. If there is space in a public school, the first question should be, why is it that parents are leaving that school? And it could very well be, and I'm open to the idea that maybe that space should go to a charter school. I don't believe philosophically there's a problem with it. But I do believe that the first imperative should be to ask the question, how it is that we make that a good public school in the traditional sense. Why are parents leaving? And we also have to do something else. We have to make sure there's actually the space there. It doesn't serve anyone's interest to be shoehorning students in. And sometimes, you have an extra bedroom and it seems like an extra bedroom, but it's filled up with storage. But I don't have a philosophical problem with co-location. I can tell you this. I have had plenty of conversations with parents who are in a co-located school that is not as good. And the charter has been a very convenient finger to point. That doesn't serve anyone's interest. It makes it harder for you to sell the brand to other places, and it does lead to a sense of inferiority when you are populating in a school where there's a successful charter and you're not getting the service you want. There are too many people, ladies and gentlemen, that seems to have it in their interest to make this a fight. Here's what's going to be different in my administration. If I'm fortunate enough to get elected with your help and with God's help, I am going to try to turn down the temperature on this conversation to get to a place that it's less us against them. The traditional public schools versus the charters, the UFT versus the reformers. We have to get away from that space. Too many people on both sides of the debate benefit from it. The charter movement raises money off it. The UFT organizes parents around it. We've got to stop. These are children. Here, let me finish. I'm getting close to my crescendo. These are children. These are children. They don't have politics yet. They're not Republicans yet. They're not reformers yet. We have to focus on what's good for them. And if it turns out that it's good for them to use that space as a charter, I'm for it. If it turns out it's better for them to have a music studio, I'm for that. If it turns out it's better for a chem lab, I'm for that. I'm willing to try anything.
Thank you. As a follow-up, all of the Democratic candidates have said that charter schools should pay rent. Do you agree with this question? We are looking for a yes or no answer here.
No.
Thank you, Congressman Weiner.
That was fun.
My question to you is, should charter schools be able to co-locate in public school space? We're looking for a yes or no answer.
Should they be allowed to co-locate?
In public school space?
Yes.
Thank you. As a follow-up, Some, but not all, of the Democratic candidates have said that charter schools should pay rent to co-locate. Do you agree with that statement? Please also give us a yes or no answer.
No.
Thank you so much, Speaker Quinn.
You're welcome. Now, let me say, and because I want to say the same thing in every room. I feel it's important. Because, look, the truth is, if charter schools pay rent to co-locate, you're not co-locating. And the model of charter schools is in part based on not paying rent. So if you say you're going to pay rent, then you're not going to have charters, most charters, because not very few charters are going to end up like the Harlem Children's Zone, where you're going to have your own building. But if you do, that's great. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think the co-location process is perfect, either for co-locations with charters and districts, or districts and districts either. And the Department of Education, when I'm mayor, we're going to do a better job making sure that resources get distributed to every school in a building evenly. So there isn't the feeling that some floors are getting more than others. We need to manage the number of students in a building. We had 2 district schools in my district co-located for a long time together, PS 11 and Clinton High School for artists and writers. No one, in my opinion, in DOE managed the growth of those schools. And all of a sudden, there was not enough space, and they were at each other's throats. And we had to move the middle school out. We found them a new space. So I want to make the process one that's more transparent, more consistent, and better managed. I just wanted to make sure I said the same thing in every room on this topic.
Thank you, Speaker Quinn. My question for you tonight is, should charters be able to co-locate in public school space? Please give me a yes or no answer.
Wow. It's a little more complicated than that. I think charter schools are providing a valuable service. Obviously, you can see how many parents and children are pleased with the program. I've always taken a position that I support a moratorium on co-location, but I'm open to changing that if there's community input. I want to see community input because I've seen a number of situations where there's been a tremendous amount of tension between the charter school parents and the teachers and what have you. So I want community inputs. I'm not against co-location as of right, but I am for changing the way it's done by making sure that we have community input.
My children are currently in a co-located space. Our co-location is a success. If I understand, you're saying that you do support the moratorium on co-locations?
I do, unless there's community input.
Okay. As a follow-up, some but not all of the Democratic candidates have said that charter schools should pay rent to co-locate. Do you agree with this? We are also looking for a yes or no answer here.
I would say no.
Please explain your answer. Just elaborate a little bit more.
Well, look, charter schools provide a valuable service. I mean, the last thing I want to do is erode their ability to provide the services to children and to parents. So they are servicing New York City students. They're all residents. They're all taxpayers. And if we can take the resource, if there's room in a school and the community supports co-location, we want to maximize the resources in the classroom rather than paying for the physical space.
Thank you for that answer. My question for you is, should charter schools be able to co-locate in public school space? We're looking for a yes or no answer here.
Well, my quick answer is going to be no, and let me explain why. There are many charter schools in the city of New York, those that are somewhat called community-grown charter schools. They were developed by community-based organizations who were in that neighborhood for a very long period of time. And when they started that school, they also had the space by which to have that school in. And those schools are some of the most successful charter schools. But then there are charter school networks that seem more corporate in nature to me, and they are trying to spread into every neighborhood in the city. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be in every neighborhood, but we have to excuse me, we have to take a look at what's happened with some of these co-locations, where there's a school building that already has 1, 2, sometimes 3 schools, and they are generally doing well, or maybe in some cases they need additional help, like the schools that I talked about earlier. But what happens is the parents and the teachers are then told that a charter school is going to be coming in and taking the space that school already needed from that building. What that does is it creates a huge amount of tension between the parents, between the teachers, sometimes between the students, and certainly a division within the community. So the experiences that I have seen, and I have seen so many of these co-locations happen over the recent years, the amount of division and tension it creates within that building and in the surrounding community, I think that it has not been worth that kind of co-location tension. It has distracted away from the learning environment that should be in each and every one of those school buildings. And then you get to the issue where sometimes the charter school that then gets put into that building gets newer space, it's more brightly lit, they get newer equipment, and it sets a dichotomy from the rest of the school. It sends a terrible message to the students who are already there in that building. I think that because of the tension that co-locations have created, I don't think that that's the way to go. If we want to have charter schools, they should be community-grown charter schools with their own space.
Thank you for that answer. As a follow-up, some, but not all, of the Democratic candidates have said that charter schools should pay rent to co-locate. Do you agree? We are also looking for a yes or no answer here.
The question was, should they pay rent?
Should charters pay rent to co-locate?
The answer is yes, and 30 seconds, let me explain why. Because we have had a lot of the deck stacked in favor of charter schools. I believe that when parents evaluate charter schools versus other schools, everything should be on the same level playing field. The fact of the matter is the non-charter public schools have high cost structures that the newer charter schools don't necessarily have. And therefore, the newer charter schools can spend more on types of programs that the non-charter public schools don't have the money for because they have costs with regard to their space. So when we want to present parents with a choice, it should be a true choice where every school is evaluated on the same criteria and every school has the same kinds of constraints, especially budgetary constraints.
So in conclusion, Mr. Liu, I heard what you're saying is charter schools should not co-locate in public school space and they should pay rent to co-locate. Thank you.
Well, what I've said is the charter schools that are already in the school buildings coexisting with other schools, I mean, that's the way it is. It's been there now for years in some cases. I'm not saying that we need to rip those charter schools out of the school buildings. Going forward, I do believe that when we create new charter schools, if we create any new charter schools, that they should come with their own space. To the extent that schools are going to share space, they've also got to share the cost structure as well so that they can be evaluated by parents on a level playing field.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next question.